opportunity to address you. My name is Gary Bledsoe. I'm president of the NAACP in Texas. I come before you as a Texan that I would like to say that we all share much in common. And I'm very concerned about where we are going in our state. And for the inability to use a lesser term, I must say that it is clear that the legislation before you that you're now considering, SB 1, is anti-black and anti-brown. And I use those terms very measurably, but sincerely, because of a number of reasons. And I know that very powerful people are pushing SB 1, and that very powerful people, not just in this state, but around the nation, would like to see these laws implemented. And you will have a decision to make, whether you stand on the side of people of both parties, such as Everett Dirksen or Bill Ratliff on the Republican side, or people like Lyndon Baines Johnson, Barbara Jordan, and Henry B. Gonzalez on the Democratic side. Because you have a choice to make, but it's clear that your choice, even if race is not expressly mentioned in the bill, like I've heard Senator Hughes mention, it's clear that the impact will be negative against African Americans and Latinos. And it also will negatively impact the disabled community. Some of the things in the bill in reference to disabled community are really pretty shocking and disappointing that they would actually be included in a piece of legislation. One of the things that we see is that there seems to be an all-out attack or assault on minority election officials. We see as though the things that they've done to stem the tide and try to preserve the interests of minority voters in the past is now being turned against them. And they're being defrocked, and they're being subjected to potential criminal prosecutions. And when you join that with the fact that, let's say, for example, some of the things that you want to change maybe should be changed, but why is it that you criminalize the conduct? Why don't you make a decision to say we're going to have training, or we're going to require some other kind of remedy if there is an issue? But the mere fact that one goes straight to criminal prosecution means that, in my opinion, there's nefarious intent behind the legislation, because there's no intent to be collaborative or to work with other individuals under any circumstance. I think the attack on individuals who want to assist voters will have a chilling effect on individuals who want to assist individuals who may be in need of assistance for any reason. And one of the issues that grabs me is that when you may be transporting a disabled or a voter who is in need of assistance, or you may be trying to work with them to get them to vote absentee, the declaration requirements that are there, and the fact that you have to give testimony as to what you understand in reference to an individual and their circumstance. It's a couple of problems with that. One is that means you have to give private information you may not want to give to someone, and number two, it exposes that to the world. But also, it potentially puts the helper against the helpee, because obviously there will be a situation of whether or not what was communicated seems to be accurate, and you seek to potentially destroy a relationship or undermine or intimidate people from actually being good Samaritans. I think that what's occurring here with poll watchers is really disappointing, because the poll watchers are empowered to such an extent they become overseers, like on a plantation. And they're sent out more to watch and see what the slaves are doing on the plantation, because the poll watchers that we've seen in Harris County and Bowie County and in other places have gone into minority neighborhoods and really been very belligerent and I might add McLennan County to that as well. But there are many other counties too. And when they go and they act in a certain way in our neighborhoods, but there's nothing in the bill that seems to redress their conduct. There's nothing in the bill that says if they do something wrong that they're subject to criminal prosecution. So what this does is it elevates the poll watcher to where they're greater than the election judge, changing many, many years of Texas law where the election judges had the authority to run their polling places as if they were a district judge. That doesn't apply now. The balance of power has been changed, and it's been changed to give power to individuals that we've had the most problem with in our community.
Gary,
the hours restriction.
Gary,
Sorry,
if I may, because we've got
okay, sure.
213 people still to go. I want to be respectful, but I'd like to go ahead and move to questions because we've been a couple minutes over our time.
Okay.
Members, questions of Mr. Bledsoe? Senator Lucio, you're recognized. Senator Lucio, you're recognized.
Thank you. Gary, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for being here today. It's, I think back the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 plus, and the fact that you have been regarded as an icon, not only in the African-American community, but in all communities in our great state.
Thank you, Senator.
Standing up for always what's right. What I like about you is your approach of approaching things in a peaceful way, not combative, in a fair way, and always trying to bring people together and make sense of whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. You're solution-oriented, and I certainly appreciate that. And I think the saying "we're all in this together" is most important tonight. To be able to send that message to everyone in every corner of the state of Texas, so that we can understand that we are one Texas family, and we should find our way to what Martin Luther King said, the promised land in our own state, if any. And we should be a model for the rest of the country.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to let you know that I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you and others in both sides of the aisle, quite frankly. What you have done, I've seen it, and that's most important for us to leave here understanding that we have a responsibility for one another, and we have one shot in life to be able to do the right thing. My heart goes out to those that are less fortunate in our country, in our state, in our communities, those that are here, special needs, young people, older citizens who depend on us to be able to do the right thing for everyone and to come up with public policy that's going to work for everyone.
Absolutely.
I want everyone to participate in the political process, especially eligible voters. That's what we want. And I hope that at the end of the day, we can see that happen in our great state. But I personally want to thank you for all the years that we have worked together. And we've come up short at times, but we have accomplished a lot. Thanks to your leadership, you lead through example. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. You've been a major part of what we've tried to accomplish, and we have made Texas a better state. I'm just concerned that we're moving in the wrong direction, but I know you have pulled in the right direction, too, trying to bring people together. I know you, Senator West, and others for so many years.
Just
One of
want
the
to
things, Senator, that I must note is in years past, when we had major legislation like this, the leaders would get us together, and you'd have people from the public interest groups on the left and on the right, and we'd sit in rooms for 2 or 3 months. Senator West did that on so many criminal justice bills, right? And then we did that on voter ID and all that with Todd Smith leading the Republicans, Rafael Anchia leading the Democrats, and we came up with really good things that came out of that. And when people aren't talking, you come up with bills like we don't know the origin of bills or whether they're groups that don't really have a real connection to Texas that are providing input. But we're missing that, and this bill is clearly discriminatory on its face.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my Republican brothers and sisters as well, because they They too lead through example, especially when it comes to the sanctity of life and making sure we respect the unborn and those that live in our state that need our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Let me, before
Okay.
members of the
Yeah.
committee, all right. Senator Menendez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Gary, you've alluded to a few things, and I want us to clarify. There are rights to assistance that the federal law grants voters. Is that not correct?
That's absolutely true.
So in your opinion, how does SB 1 interfere with voter assistance rights that are granted by federal law?
I think it interferes with what's actually provided in terms of who, what, and how assistance can be provided. And so I think it goes to the core of what's actually provided by federal law. So one would think maybe that one might seek an opinion on that, because it seems to me on the face of it that it would be illegal and in violation of federal law.
So there would be some legal implications of SB 1 conflicting with federal voter law, federal assistance law. Is that not correct?
I think so. I would believe that.
So
Firmly.
a voter can choose who assists them. Is that not correct? And they can choose. They're not limited in who can choose them? Is that-
They should be able to do that. This bill changes that.
Yes, it does. So how would the prohibition on encouraging a voter to use an assister affect the ability of voters to choose their assisters?
Well, I think what it's going to do, it's going to deny them a choice, and then it puts conditions on the choice should they be able to exercise the choice and choose the voter, as the election code might tend to provide, because it will have a chilling effect if you have someone who's going to assist the voter, but then there are requirements that might put them within harm's way. They may really and truly be dissuaded. Plus, I think that in terms of the nature of the information that needs to be disclosed, not just to the authorities, but the way I read the bill, it must be disclosed to the helper as well, because the helpers are going to end up being examined too about what they understand to be why the assistance was needed.
So with respect to the poll watchers, because you brought up the poll watchers, and you used a very strong analogy, but I think let's break it down a little bit. How will, with respect to them, the practical effect of removing the requirement for them to be either sitting or standing in one place in order to observe, what's the practical effect of that happen? You know, now that they can roam around and sort of, you know, be close to people while voting, what's that effect? Could you just sort of describe it for folks?
Well, I think, let me mention, if I might, Senator, one of the origins for that obviously was an incident or some incidents that occurred in the 2020 election. And there was an issue where a poll watcher had been mistreating black and brown voters both, and the election judge had called attention to it. So then the poll watcher decided that what they would do would be accuse the election judge of some kind of misconduct, and they wanted to go. I think the poll watcher needed to go to a private room where a purse was, or a change of blouse or something, and they insisted on following them. And so the idea here is to give them full latitude, because the election judge said, no, you can't follow me and go here. But I think what this does is it gives them largesse. And Senator, maybe I should apologize for the extreme example, but I think the overseer example is a legitimate one, because that's what it makes you. When you get to roam and go and see what people are doing, and what I worry about is the whole idea about seeing and observing. You know, it seems to me that when you need assistance, if you need some privacy in terms of your communication with another person, you ought to be able to have privacy. But what this says, I think, is that you lose your privacy by deciding that you need assistance. So it really discriminates against people that have the need of assistance who might be disabled. And so I think that's a real issue there, that you have to fess up and give information. And, you know, the good thing is, like, our all-Republican Supreme Court came up with a wise decision in July of 2020 when they decided that we'll have a don't ask, don't tell policy and how things should work under the current law. The current law works well in terms of how it addresses disability and people and their eligibility in terms of being able to have a mail-in ballot, for example. And this turns all that on its head, because it just changes the whole nature of it.
So Gary, it seems to me that out of a desire, which we all share, to have only eligible voters